Good evening. Welcome to Inside City Hall for Monday, November 10th, 2025. I'm Errol Lewis. Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani announced his first appointments today, filling two of the top jobs in the incoming administration. Dean Fuleihan, a major player in Bill de Blasio's City Hall, will be first deputy mayor, while Elle Bisgaard-Church, a trusted aide, will be the chief of staff. Our Dan Rivley was at the announcement today and joins us with tonight's top story. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, Errol. In that announcement, Mayor-elect Mamdani gave a little backstory about this appointment of Dean Fuleihan, saying they had met in the late winter and they talked about two major issues that would be key to Mamdani's agenda. That would be the universal pre-K under the de Blasio administration and property tax reform. For Mamdani, the appointment of Dean Fuleihan brings in an experienced government hand, while his appointment of his longtime Assembly Chief of Staff will bring a member of his inner circle into City Hall.
Two leaders who have deep experience guiding our city and state through challenging moments, possess the fresh, innovative ideas needed to transform our city.
An experienced government hand and a trusted peer from his inner circle, the first choices for Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani's administration, announced at the Roosevelt House in Manhattan, where Franklin Roosevelt planned the New Deal. Dean Fuleihan will be first deputy mayor. He's a 74-year-old veteran of de Blasio's City Hall with decades of Albany experience. Elle Bisgaard-Church, 34, was named chief of staff at City Hall. She ran Mamdani's assembly office and his primary campaign.
Looking at their records gives me immense confidence in their ability to do both the work that has animated the campaign over the course of this more than a year, and also work that illustrates a recognition that has too often been missing in city government, that there is no concern too small to be that of importance to those of us within City Hall.
Mamdani said they will be focusing on his campaign promises: free childcare, a freeze in rent for stabilized units, and free buses. It's an effort that'll require surmounting opposition to new tax increases to pay for it all. Part of that opposition is coming from Governor Kathy Hochul. Fuleihan was chief budget negotiator for the state assembly in Albany. He was also Mayor de Blasio's budget chief and his first deputy who funded the city's universal pre-kindergarten program. Fuleihan said when it comes to obstinate Albany leaders, he's been there before.
I do have experience there. I've been told many times in the past things could not happen, and directly, and that's not what we're being told. We're being told, let's have a conversation, and that's what we're going to do.
Mamdani called Bisgaard-Church his moral compass and brilliant strategic center.
The incoming administration offers bold vision combined with determined realism.
After the announcement, the three dined at Chamoun's Way, a Lebanese restaurant. Fuleihan's father and maternal grandparents are from Lebanon. Mamdani, an immigrant and naturalized citizen, noted that background in his remarks, saying they both share a vision for the city through the prism of the immigrant experience. And whenever Mayor-elect Mamdani takes questions from reporters, he's always asked about the NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch. During the campaign, he vowed to keep her on the post, but he had no update about whether he had personally made the formal offer to her, Errol.
I'm assuming now that because he has these two top people named, that they're going to be part of the transition and help staff the rest of the administration. Was there any conversation about that?
Yes, he said that they will be involved in the staffing, and of course they have many more seats to fill. He was even asked, Mayor-elect Mamdani was asked about if is there going to be an overhaul at City Hall, and he suggested no one would be penalized if they were appointed under Mayor Eric Adams or any other past administration, but that they just have to be right on the issues.
I see. And when it comes to some of the transition mechanics, will they be working out of a particular office? Do we know? Do we know exactly where the answers are going to be?
That's a good question. They so far have been making these transition announcements in different places. So we do, last week he announced it under the Unisphere in Queens here, the Roosevelt House. We'll see which venue he makes his next appointments.
Okay. Thanks very much, Dan. Governor Kathy Hochul and Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani looked like they were relishing the honeymoon phase of their political relationship over the weekend at that Somos conference in Puerto Rico. They appeared together at multiple events, praising each other. But there was also a dose of tough love. Hochul provided a reality check on Mamdani's promises while the mayor-elect is sending a message that if there's a will, there's a way. Our State House reporter Bernadette Hogan has a roundup of what was a busy weekend in Puerto Rico. Good evening.
Good evening, Errol. And so things might seem easy now. Both Mamdani and Governor Hochul can present this message of unity that they are seeking to put on to New Yorkers, but wait until times get tough. The Albany budget negotiations and Governor Kathy Hochul's re-election.
This individual is going to work with me shoulder to shoulder to deliver for New York City the way it's never seen in its lifetime.
Debuting their fledgling relationship,
Zohran Mamdani!
Governor Kathy Hochul and Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani making it clear they want to start out on the right foot. Flaunting their political union before power brokers, supporters, and skeptics in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Who's not in our house? Because this is a big tent.
Sharing similar goals like convincing New Yorkers they can make their lives more affordable.
I see partners who are willing to do two things all at once: fight an authoritarian administration and deliver on an affordability crisis.
Despite being a moderate and him a Democratic socialist, they're pledging to work past differences.
But our fight is not with each other. It is not with each other. It is with the Republicans in Washington who are destroying our way of life.
Planning for Mamdani's inevitable clash with President Donald Trump after his January 1st inauguration day, Hochul wants him to keep NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch and is also going to bat for him with the business class.
This will still remain a capitalist city.
While distancing herself from controversial tenets of democratic socialism.
I don't support them. I've made that clear.
Explaining he won't, quote, remake City Hall, Mamdani,
To ensure that City Hall is seen as a place that not only recognizes those struggles, but actually delivers on the material needs of those working people.
he needs Hochul's checkbook to pay for free buses, universal childcare, and other social programs.
I am so happy to be here. I hear you, but I'm the type of person, the more you push me, the more I'm not going to do what you want.
Hochul must balance New York's multi-billion-dollar state budget while running for re-election next year against Republicans endeavoring to link her to Mamdani's pricey promises, providing a reality check.
I cannot set forth a plan right now that takes money out of a system that relies on the fares of the buses and the subways.
Both legislative leaders back Mamdani's calls for tax increases, setting up Hochul and Mamdani for a possible showdown during next year's state budget negotiations.
This is an agenda that's achievable. We have to work on how to make sure that we come to those agreements.
Now, political chess playing out in real time, Mamdani hired the late Democratic Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver's former top aide, Dean Fuleihan, an Albany budget expert. It's meaning Mamdani is not taking no for an answer.
I'm looking forward to being a mayor who means exactly what it is that they say. These are not just slogans. These are commitments, and I look forward to delivering on them.
So Governor Hochul says no right now on free buses, yes on childcare. Mamdani says, I'm going to deliver what I promised.
It sounds like the beginnings of maybe what might be their first sort of political deal, right?
Right.
That the more expensive, more complicated one, which is childcare,
Right.
is available. The bus maybe not.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The governor talked about this on Saturday during the Somos conference on the free bus program. She said, we've already spent a lot of money and given a lot of money to the MTA. And basically the indication seems to be she doesn't want to take paid ridership out of the subways and put them onto free buses. You'd have to hire more people to operate the buses. You'd have to get more buses. But then when it comes to childcare, it seems like she and her budget director have been working on this, Errol. Maybe get some private institutions involved. Maybe start with 2-year-olds or a certain demographic. And she wants to expand it statewide because, just talking to sources, they can't see a way where you don't expand it all across the state and only give something that's really important to families just to New York City.
Right, right. And then, of course, the big one, the tax increase. It sounds like the legislative leaders, they put it in their one-house bills for the last several years.
Right, they're on board. But talking to some rank-and-file members, they say, listen, we're not really on board with raising income taxes, especially if it means that it will offset how everybody else pays, right? Because that's the big issue. The highest earners pay the majority or a disproportionate amount compared to everyone else. But there could be some wiggle room with other elements of taxes.
Okay, it's going to be a busy year up in Albany. Thanks very much, Bernadette. Let's take a short break now. When we come back, the longest federal shutdown in U.S. history could end as soon as this week. We'll bring you the latest in a report. Later on, I'll be speaking with Andrew Cuomo's top advisor, Melissa DeRosa, about what went wrong for the former governor. That and much more is straight ahead. Stay with us.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
Spectrum TV, isn't that only live TV?
No, it's only all my favorite streaming apps with live TV.
Okay.
It's only all included at no extra cost. And that's the magic of math. Will this be on the test?
Sure, why not?
It's only one simple payment for all our TV. We gotta simplify and win. Winning is equally important.
If not, more so.
Yeah!
Only Spectrum TV, fixed TV.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
You've done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. In Washington, D.C. today, lawmakers appeared closer than ever to reopening the government. 8 members of the Senate Democratic Caucus broke with their party to join Republicans in advancing legislation that would fund the government through the end of January. Other Democrats are infuriated by the deal, but the government is expected to reopen in the coming days, ending the longest shutdown in U.S. history. Spectrum News national political reporter Evan Kosloff joins us now from inside the Capitol with the latest. Good evening, Evan.
Well, hey there, Errol. Right now, we're watching for the final vote on the Senate floor, but there's not a lot of drama here because this is just a simple majority. It is expected to pass. The real big hurdle was last night, Sunday night. That's when they needed 60 votes to advance this legislation, and they did so, like you said, by getting the support of 7 Democrats and 1 independent who caucuses with Democrats who did cross the aisle to advance this legislation. All of this just ensuring that this longest shutdown in American history is going to end pretty soon.
Controversial, tough call. Some of my colleagues don't like it.
Members of the Senate Democratic Caucus defending their Sunday night vote to fund the government without getting an extension of the Affordable Care Act enhanced subsidies, the central demand from Democrats throughout this lengthy shutdown.
There was zero chance of dealing with the ACA issue as long as the shutdown continued.
It's our responsibility to work not only here amongst ourselves, but across the aisle.
The agreement would fund the government through the end of January at mostly current levels and would also fund 3 long-term appropriations bills, providing money for military construction, agriculture programs, legislative agencies, and veterans programs for most of 2026. It would also reverse the layoffs of federal employees during the shutdown and prevent such layoffs in the future.
And I'm grateful that the end is in sight.
As a part of the agreement, Senate Majority Leader John Thune agreed to hold a vote on the ACA subsidies in mid-December. but there's no guarantee that it would pass in the Senate or even get considered in the Republican-controlled House.
They're going to have to explain themselves to their constituents and to the American people.
The measure was opposed by top Democrats in the House and Senate as they signaled they plan to make this healthcare fight a central focus in next year's midterms.
Americans will remember Republican intransigence every time they make a sky-high payment on health insurance.
Our long national nightmare is finally coming to an end.
Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson applauding the Democrats who crossed the aisle as he's now calling on House members to return to Washington so they could quickly vote to reopen the government. Johnson had kept the House on recess for 7 weeks.
The people's government cannot be held hostage to further anyone's political agenda.
So the end might be in sight, and yet we shouldn't forget that the effects of the shutdown do continue, including at 40 of the country's biggest airports where we have major cancellations. Of course, we've been talking about how since Friday, the FAA ordered 4% of flights to be canceled at those major airports. Well, starting on Tuesday, it's going to jump up to 6% of flights, Thursday, 8% flights, and then by Friday, it's going to hit 10%, Errol. Of course, that's if the shutdown is still going on Friday.
So now, Evan, we're also following backlash against Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. He's getting backlash from within the Democratic Party ever since this deal was struck. What are you hearing from lawmakers?
Right, we have heard from a lot of Democrats that have been voicing frustration because they didn't get their main goal here, which was, of course, those ACA enhanced subsidies being extended. And that being, and in fact, we've heard from some House Democrats that have even called for him to step down from his leadership position. I want to pull up a post on social media if we're able to give it to you here. This was Ro Khanna who posted here, Senator Schumer is no longer effective and should be replaced. If you can't lead the fight to stop health care premiums from skyrocketing for Americans, what will you fight for? So that was from a California Democrat, Ro Khanna, a member of Congress. And look, Senator Schumer has faced backlash before. It was back in March when he did give support for another funding measure and received backlash for that. Errol, notably the top House Democrat, Hakeem Jeffries, has stood by Senator Schumer. He was asked whether he thought he was effective and should stay in his position. His answer was yes and yes.
Okay. Thanks very much, Evan Kosloff. Meanwhile, today, President Trump pardoned former Mayor Rudy Giuliani and more than 70 other allies and associates who tried to overturn the results of the 2020 election. The pardons are largely symbolic because they only cover federal crimes, and none of the people receiving those pardons were charged with federal offenses. But the pardons represent another attempt by the president to further his false claims about the 2020 elections, calling them rigged, and an attempt by the president to rewrite the history of January 6th, when his supporters stormed the Capitol. Spectrum News national political reporter Taylor Popolars has the latest in this report.
Around 2 o'clock Monday morning, a special attorney for the Justice Department named Ed Martin posted on social media, breaking, President Trump pardoned the 2020 alternative electors. He added, let their healing begin. The document he shared stated this proclamation ends a grave national injustice and continues the process of national reconciliation. It lists 77 people President Trump was pardoning for their role in or advocacy for any slate or proposed slate of presidential electors in connection with the 2020 presidential election and any conduct relating to their efforts to expose voting fraud and vulnerabilities in the 2020 presidential election. Those pardoned include former New York City Mayor and one-time Trump attorney Rudy Giuliani, former Trump White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and lawyers Sidney Powell, Kenneth Chesebro, John Eastman, and Jeffrey Clark. Some of those pardoned have been hit with state charges of submitting false certificates that claim they were legitimate electors for Donald Trump despite Joe Biden winning those states. Powell and Chesebro have pleaded guilty to charges in Georgia. Georgetown law professor Michelle Goodwin says the pardons amount to a messaging exercise because those listed have only faced state charges which are not covered by the pardons.
So this is symbolic, but that symbolism is worth noting.
And that's because the president continues to try to rewrite history by falsely claiming the 2020 election was stolen from him, a claim that led his supporters to storm the Capitol on January 6, 2021.
It certainly does, by the nature of these pardons, helps to fuel that conspiracy theory that somehow what Donald Trump is doing today is actually correcting something that judges failed to do in that 2020 election.
Soon after his inauguration on January 20th, the president pardoned all of the more than 1,500 people charged in the January 6th attack, even those who assaulted police. He told Spectrum News this last month.
I can say we're very proud of what we did. We had the courage to do something that should have been done.
Clark, a current Trump administration official who was pardoned, posted on X that the president called him on Friday night to tell him the news. He thanked the president, but acknowledged in his post that this pardon will not end a D.C. case where he faces disbarment or other state-level cases. Reporting at the White House, Taylor Popolars, Spectrum News.
It is time now for a break. Coming up, we'll take a look at how veterans are coming together to help address the mental health struggles of their fellow former service members. Stay with us.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting, with stories that inspire and news that matters on your smart TV and connected devices, streaming live 24/7, plus on-demand weather forecast to help you stay prepared. It's all there as you step outside with the Spectrum News mobile app, keeping you informed and in the know throughout your day. Spectrum News, free with your Spectrum subscription, exclusively for Spectrum customers, now available on your favorite devices.
It's only a game. It's only a little rivalry. It's only a ritual. When I come home and a few generations. You're always there. And only Spectrum TV includes all your favorite streaming apps with live TV at no extra cost. It's only a game. It's only everything.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard. At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York One to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood. Because our city never stops moving.
3, 2, 1. Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first,
stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. As we approach Veterans Day, New York One is taking a look at some of the challenges faced by our city's veteran population. More than 1.7 million veterans received treatment in a VA mental health specialty program last year, according to federal data. New York One's Alyssa Palicelli introduces us to one local veteran who's now thriving after getting the help that he needed.
Rehashing memories that I kind of buried. I never knew that I buried them until I actually had to talk about them.
Queens native and former Marine Bill Vallely experienced anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder when he returned home from his 2 tours in Iraq. Vallely says he never considered applying for any government benefits or working with any nonprofit organizations because he thought other veterans needed help more. A former comrade he served with, who happened to be the founder of nonprofit Veterans Rebuilding Life, talked him into getting that help.
Ever since then, I've been highly vocal about talking about your experiences, accept the things that you brought home, and let it drive you.
According to an evaluation report by the Department of Veteran Affairs Mental Health Services, 41% of veterans who served in Iraq and Afghanistan were in need of some kind of mental health service. Vets struggling with PTSD, depression, anxiety, like the non-veteran population, are at greater risk for unemployment and homelessness. Dr. Mayor Bellison is the founding director of the Center for Traumatic Stress Resilience and Recovery at Northwell Health. He works with veterans and their families and helps them navigate mental illness related to their service.
It can impact your employment, which then puts you at greater risk for financial troubles and potentially even being unhoused. which in turn then exacerbates the mental health conditions.
The latest August 2025 unemployment rate among veterans was about 3.1%, down slightly from the same period last year. When it comes to homelessness, both nationwide and locally, there have been improvements in those statistics. Across the country, there are more than 32,000 homeless veterans on a single night, a nearly 8% decrease from the year prior. New York City led the way in reducing the number of homeless vets in New York State. From 2011 to 2022, the total number of homeless veterans in the city was reduced by 90%, from more than 4,000 vets to just under 500 individuals. VA funding for programs addressing veterans' homelessness has grown more than 600% in the last 16 years. Dr. Bellison says the VA has made advances in their level of mental health support for veterans as well.
The VA has also tried to expand to deploy and utilize community care, and so that helps. But even among our community providers, there isn't always enough cultural competency with how to treat veterans or even access.
The organization Veterans Rebuilding Life that worked with Vallely aims to tackle vets' mental health needs by addressing any instability in the lives of vets, housing insecurity, lack of community, and employment struggles. Leaders at the organization believe when not resolved, those factors heavily contribute to the 17 veterans who take their life each day. Damia December volunteers for the nonprofit organization.
We have community service as that final step for our program. It's not enough to say, like, you have everything taken care of for you. You also are missing that purpose, that drive of what makes life worth living.
Vallely spent a year going through the three-phase program with Veterans Rebuilding Life, and now also gets mental health care both through the Veterans Administration and privately. That experience, he says, helped propel him into his new phase of life, entrepreneurship. Since completing the program, Vallely has launched several successful businesses and now volunteers with VRL, connecting many vets with jobs and helping them accept the help he, too, was hesitant about.
Maybe if I can save one veteran from horribly committing suicide, that's what's worth it. My life's mission.
Alyssa Policelli, New York 1.
It is time for a break. When we come back, what went wrong for Andrew Cuomo in his political comeback attempt? I'll talk it over with one of his top advisors, Melissa DeRosa. Stay with us.
In Focus with Cheryl Wills, a weekly show discussing decisions and potential solutions for issues making an impact in your community and your city. If it's important to New Yorkers, then it's being talked about here. In Focus with Cheryl Wills, Sunday mornings at 10:30 on New York 1.
It's only a slice. It's only made possible by Spectrum, connecting businesses of all sizes, like small businesses, instantly serving up orders and inventory on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network, and factories, seamlessly connecting to farmers in the field with tailored solutions that always deliver. It's only a slice. It's only everything. Get your business free fiber-powered internet forever. Call to find out how.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
This campaign was the right fight to wage, and I am proud
proud of what we did and what we did together. This campaign was to contest the philosophies that are shaping the Democratic Party, the future of this city, and the future of this country.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. That was part of Andrew Cuomo's message to the more than 800,000 New Yorkers who voted for him last week. Following his second defeat to Zohran Mamdani this year, Cuomo is now at a career crossroads after spending more than 40 years in the public eye. Joining me now to talk more about Cuomo and much more, we've got Melissa DeRosso. She is one of Cuomo's most trusted aides and served as a campaign advisor during his mayoral run. Welcome back to the program. Always good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Errol.
Absolutely. So after the primary, Andrew Cuomo told me that he thought that part didn't go well for him because the campaign wasn't aggressive enough. What do you think happened between the primary and the general?
Well, after we lost the primary, we took a couple of weeks, as you remember, Errol. And we did some soul searching. We did some honest reflection about what went wrong in the primary. And we made some real changes. We looked at some math and we decided that it was worth getting in. Not because we believed that we could prevail necessarily, but we believed that if we didn't get back in, you would end up with Zohran Mamdani having a landslide victory. That Eric Adams was polling, consistently in the high single digits, low, 10, 11, 12, that Curtis Sliwa was not a serious contender, and that Zohran Mamdani would have sort of this runaway coronation, that none of his ideas would be contested, that he wouldn't be held accountable for any of his previous statements or for any of his beliefs that we found offensive on some level, particularly regarding Israel and stoking anti-Semitism. And we thought that it was a war worth waging, not because we would necessarily win, but because if we didn't do it, we thought that people would take all the wrong lessons from what happened in the primary.
Okay, well, I want to come back to that, the sort of the philosophical and political side of it. Did you have a turnout model or assumptions when you did put the numbers down?
So, and it's politics is a big chessboard, right? So there was the very narrow path to victory, which we believed could potentially be possible if all the stars aligned, which was Eric Adams gets out, Curtis Sliwa gets out, and you drive the turnout up high enough. And Eric Adams got out, Curtis never got out. I think if Curtis had gotten out, even though people say, oh, well, the math still wasn't there, it just would have been a totally different dynamic. Curtis Sliwa spent 95% of his time attacking Andrew Cuomo, not Zohran Mamdani. And so we were sitting on a debate stage, which you moderated. And you gave him one question, and he used that question to attack the Democrat who is viewed more as the moderate than the Democratic Socialist, which was sort of off-brand. So I think that the dynamic would have been entirely different. But that was sort of the way to victory. And it became clearer and clearer as October went forward that Curtis was not going to listen to reason, that Curtis was going to stay in for whatever his motivation, and it's been speculated about. I don't know if there was a backroom deal with someone to keep him in. But even the more then, it was increasingly clear that the path was not there, but we were going to fight it out till the bitter end. And I think we did, and I think we left it all on the field.
I've worked with Curtis in the past. He was a regular on the show, and I mean, I know him pretty well in a way. He was the Republican nominee. He had a bunch of people on the ticket with him. I mean, it wasn't really just about him. So in a way, it was never really realistic to expect the guy at the top of the ticket of the Republican Party to disregard the judges, the council members, all of the people on his ticket and just walk away, right?
Yeah, but I disagree, because what difference did it make? At the end of the day, he got 7% of the vote. Vito Fossella still had a resounding victory in Staten Island, regardless of the fact that Curtis got 7% citywide. And that's because Staten Island voters ticket split, and they voted for Andrew Cuomo at the top, and then they went down and they voted for the Republican. So Curtis, I think, just enjoys the attention. I think his ego is larger than Giants Stadium. And I think the more people pushed him and the more it was clear that he was playing this outsized role, he sort of relished it. And he put himself and his ego above the city, if that's what he actually cared about, given that his views, I think, are much more closely aligned with a moderate Democrat than a Democratic Socialist.
Well, yeah, now let's talk about that. Do you believe that I understand what's said on the campaign trail, but now this is like, that's over, right? We're going to have a new mayor in about 50 days or so. Is it so bad, the fact that he, it has this adherence to Democratic Socialist ideas and wants to open these grocery stores or whatever, is it so bad that it's an existential threat, that it's going to sort of like change New York in ways that just can't be fixed?
I think it's going to depend on the version of Zohran Mamdani that we get. It's going to depend on Albany, and it's going to depend on the people that he puts in his administration. And look, the thing about our campaign that I was particularly proud of, that we haven't seen in this country since before Hillary versus Trump in 2016, maybe even before Obama was elected in 2008, was that this bipartisan coalition came together of Democrats, of independents, and of Republicans because we all believed in capitalism, we believed in fighting back against anti-Semitism, and we believed that this version of what the DSA puts out is, number one, in some ways not realistic, but number two, dangerous. And now we'll see. We'll see. He's 34 years old. He's totally untested. He has no experience whatsoever. And as you and I both know, and viewers of your show know, Albany's going to play an outsized role here in how far and fast he can run and the people he puts in a position of power. At the end of the day, the mayor's job is education, it's public safety, it's sanitation, and those are not ideological positions. But if you put someone in a position like being the head of the NYPD, and you say, disband strategic response group, don't enforce prostitution laws, don't enforce misdemeanors, don't enforce any quality of life crimes, you can start to see the city really go backwards pretty rapidly.
Do you take any comfort in the fact that Dean Fuleihan has been appointed? He's got more experience than probably most of the 2 or 3 people who had the job before him.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know Dean very well. He's an old hand. Forget about Bill de Blasio. He's, you know, Shelley Silver's right-hand guy. So he is, you know, as seasoned as they come. He is incredibly smart, and he understands how to deal with the budget, which, by the way, is going to be critically important because one of the things no one talks about is that there's going to be a giant budget hole to deal with before you talk about unrealistic things like free buses and universal, you know, daycare. So I think that Dean was a good appointment for him. I think it also should bring a lot of comfort to the business community and to others. However, he put Elle as his chief of staff at the same time, and she is as much a zealot as they come. And so it's going to be interesting to see when he's making these appointments, who's going to have the real power? Are these people going to stay if there's some altercation out of the gate? Like, does Jesse Tisch stay on? If, you know, as was reported over the weekend, the DSA put out their list of demands, one of which was, forget about just Benjamin Netanyahu, but if an IDF soldier steps foot in New York City, they should be arrested for war crimes. So if he says to her, the NYPD needs to exercise this on behalf of the demands of my comrades at the DSA, and she says no, who fills that position? Well,
yeah, I mean, we'll find out about that. I wouldn't pay too much attention to what people outside of government say about what's going to happen in government. I got a couple of more questions. One is the conduct of the campaign, especially in the closing weeks. That ad that went up during the debate and then was pulled down. Who created that? Whose idea was that?
It was an ad that was created by a social media personality, a comedian who came in at the very end, who put it together, and it was put up. And as soon as it was brought to my attention, other senior people on the staff's attention that it was up, it was immediately pulled down because it hadn't been approved, it hadn't gone through the right legal channels. And so that was a mistake, and we acknowledged it at the time.
I mean, short of that, some of the ones like the trick or treat one and some of these other things, there's a lot of ugliness that sort of came out, and you know, I'm not going to just assign it to your campaign because there were outside groups that were doing stuff that you had no control over. But how do we put the city back together after all of that? Well, and look, that's a really good message, a really good question, Errol, because on election night, you saw 2 very different speeches. You saw Andrew Cuomo get up, and he congratulated Zohran Mamdani. When the crowd began to boo, he silenced them. He said, that's not appropriate. And then he said, now is the time to come together. We waged our fight so that people heard loud and clear that the message coming out of the primary was not that New York City is embracing the DSA wholeheartedly, and not that New York City embraces fanning the flames of anti-Semitism or anti-Israel or anything else. But at the same time, and by the way, at the end, I believe Andrew Cuomo will have over 900,000 votes when all is said and done, which is more than any mayor in modern history. So he expanded the electorate, so did we. But he did a call of unity and said, now it's our collective responsibility to work together for the good of the city. I'm cheering him on if he can do good things to be successful. At the end of the campaign, both sides fight it out, but then you come together for the country, the state, the city. And then I saw Zohran Mamdani's speech, and everyone from Van Jones to the Washington Post panned it. It's like, where was this smiley, happy guy who for the last year acted like he was the nicest person on the planet and we're all going to do this together? It was like this ugly side of him that was so incredibly divisive. And so when you're the mayor, you have to be the mayor for everyone. And again, going back to the point of our campaign,
It was to drive people out and show that this was not just a one-sided situation.
How come Andrew Cuomo didn't call him on election?
You know, that's a question for him, but I don't think it was intentional. He called him on primary night, and he very publicly congratulated him from the stage.
Okay. We're completely out of time, but I have to point out, you know Elle Stefanik, the congresswoman from upstate. You guys went to the Albany Academy for Girls together. You were both in student council together. You wrote in your book that we've talked about here on the air about how you were actually friends and colleagues, even though you were politically quite different up to a certain point. How do you assess her candidacy for governor?
Look, the one thing I will say about Elle Stefanik, knowing her since I'm 12, is she is not someone to be underestimated. So regardless of how people thought about that initial video that came out, she is cunning, she's savvy, she is smart. And I think that Kathy Hochul has left herself incredibly vulnerable on a lot of different fronts now with Zohran Mamdani and her embrace of him in the context of a statewide election. And so I think that if there are avenues and cracks that open up, Elle is going to be able to capitalize on them. And she's just someone who shouldn't be underestimated.
Oh, okay. Thanks very much. I know it was a long, hard road to this point. Thanks for coming in to tell us all about it.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll turn back to the mayoral transition when I'm joined by two top consultants. Stay with us.
The next downtown local 6 train to Brooklyn Bridge City Hall will arrive in 2 minutes.
After 30 years of forecasting for New York, I've learned it takes a dedicated team to cover all the weather our city has to offer.
I'm so honored to be a meteorologist here at New York One because as a Brooklyn kid, this is the station that I grew up watching.
Morning, noon, or night, our team is here to bring you accurate forecasts you can count on, from severe weather updates to our weather on the ones. Watch the New York One weather experts on your TV and on the go with the Spectrum News app.
Your entertainment the way you want it. With Spectrum TV, all these streaming apps are included at no extra cost. So you can watch anything. Movies, series, sports, reality, news.
Here's a look at today's top stories.
Exclusive originals.
We await your orders.
And even more of your favorites with live TV. Stream across your devices and enjoy anywhere.
See you later.
Get it all with Spectrum TV.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now. More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where we are turning back to tonight's top story. Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani named his first appointments to his incoming administration. Dean Fuleihan, who previously served as first deputy mayor and budget director under former Mayor Bill de Blasio, will be Mamdani's first deputy mayor. Elle Bisgaard-Church, who managed Mamdani's primary campaign and became the campaign's chief advisor afterwards, was named the chief of staff. Joining me now to talk about that and much more are the members of this week's Consultants Corner. We have two Democratic consultants this week, Haley Scott and Tyrone Stevens. Thank you both for being here. What do you make of these picks? It seems like, you know, the old hand and the sort of the young, trusted activists working side by side.
Yeah, it feels like sort of a good summation of the balancing act that our mayor-elect is working to do here. I think I've heard nothing but incredibly wonderful things about Dean Fuleihan. I don't personally know him, but everyone says he's sort of the consummate professional, the bureaucrat's bureaucrat. And I think that that's what a lot of people have been looking for out of this mayor-elect is to see that. And then for Elle, you know, yes, she's sort of an activist and an ally ideologically. I also think it's important to remember she's been with Zohran for a long time, and as someone who myself served as a chief of staff, I know that that sort of member to, or sort of principal staff relationship is so hard to find and build, and the fact that they have this trust and this ability to work together, I think is setting her really up for success.
Okay. A long time in this case is defined as 6 years.
Right. That's a long
not everybody
time.
considers
That's a long time.
Well, for chiefs of staff, I guess it's like dog years.
Exactly,
right? Yeah.
exactly.
Now, there's a thin line between a team of rivals and an administration in chaos, at war with itself, right?
Right. Well, look, I think you know, any new mayor has to, during their transition, has to make a decision about sort of what direction they want the administration to go. And I think, you know, these hires point to what he's trying to do, which is a serious, focused government that's capable, competent, people that can actually carry out the priorities and the promises he laid out in his campaign. So I think these hires, you see, Dean Fuleihan's been praised, certainly for first was Albany experience, and from people, you know, across the aisle, Republicans, you know, even Joe Borelli today saying it's a great hire, and you have folks obviously on the Democratic side saying this is a great hire. So I think, you know, it's a good start. It sends a good signal, an encouraging signal to folks who want to see, you know, how he's going to try to, you know, prioritize and aim his administration.
Over this last weekend in Puerto Rico, Governor Hochul said basically she's expressed some extreme skepticism about whether or not she would be able to help through the MTA with the free bus proposal, which was a central promise of the Mamdani campaign. Are we seeing the making of their first deal? Because she also said, look, I like the child care and I'll come up with the money for that.
Well, I think first we have to take a step back. There's a lot of sort of fundamental dynamics in place that incentivize a collaboration and a close partnership between Mamdani and Hochul. I mean, it's an election year next year for Governor Hochul. It's going to be the first year of a new administration. He wants to put wins on the board. She wants to put wins on the board. And, you know, there's a lot of reason for them to be working together. There's not much incentive for there to be squabbling, at least on the part of Governor Hochul, with the city where she needs a strong vote in the next election. So I think there's going to be, you know, a close collaboration. It doesn't mean they agree on every single thing, but I think they're always going to be working towards how they get to yes and what they can actually get done. Hitting some singles and doubles, you know, and just moving the ball forward.
Yeah, it always starts out nice, but there are some probably irreconcilable differences here, right?
Absolutely, and I think you're exactly right that they both want to score some early wins. The governor is also thinking down the line of running against Stefanik and having to sort of have the potentially baggage of having endorsed the mayor and sort of the backlash in places like Long Island and the Hudson Valley, where people are really concerned about him. And I think for her, showing some distinction is also an imperative while trying to score some wins.
You know, despite what Melissa DeRosa said a few minutes ago about Stefanik not being underestimated, of course, you would never underestimate anybody, but that first ad that she put out, which included footage of a woman burning to death, a violent, grisly death, which neither we nor any other station I know is actually going to air, struck me as sort of a misstep or something.
Her entire launch has seemed to be a series of missteps in a way that I was talking to other strategists and people who've done this work for a long time, and we were all saying, did her timeline get messed up? Like, how did this rollout go so poorly? There were so many mistakes. Her website wasn't up to date. There were typos in every press release. It seems like just sort of a rush job, and
yeah, right. Well, what was the rush? Because you're right. You're like even proofreading kind of thing. Why the haste? Do you think?
It's hard to say. I think potentially to get ahead of Bruce Blakeman trying to get in, and potentially Trump not being all behind Stefanik. Stefanik's already been screwed over by him once.
That's actually, I think, a good point. Blakeman, I think, he didn't necessarily come out and was enthusiastic about her campaign. In fact, holding the door open for himself to jump in the race. So I think part of it was definitely getting out in front of potential opposition. I'm
going to have to bring in some Republican consultants to give us the inside scoop.
You have to go for their side.
But no, I mean, she declares one day and she immediately gets endorsed by the chair of the state party, only to have Bruce Blakeman say, well, I'm not part of any such deal, and I might go forward anyway.
Yeah, and I think she's, you know, just her linkage to Trump in a very anti-Trump state. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of reasons why this is a campaign to nowhere, and I think it's showing that from the start.
All right. Well, Melissa DeRosa said, "Don't count her out." We'll see. Let's take a short break. I've got more to talk about with these consultants. We'll do that in 2 minutes. Stay with us. Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 on Spectrum News New York 1. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day with in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where I am once again joined by my Consultants Corner. We have two Democratic consultants this week, Haley Scott and Tyrone Stevens. We have a government shutdown that seems to be unraveling, or at least coming to an end. That's great news for the thousands of people who were laid off or otherwise inconvenienced, harmed, had to go 40 days without pay and so forth. But what happens now to Chuck Schumer? There's a lot of Democratic base anger that's being directed at him and at Hakeem Jeffries.
Well, look, I think there's definitely anger across the Democratic spectrum, from moderates, from the far left, from the middle, because I think folks look at this as a sort of whether you want to fight Trump or not. Are you standing up to Trump or not? Angus King, for example, one of the senators who signed off to this deal, he goes on TV today and he says, standing up to Donald Trump hasn't worked, and I think that right there, that cutaway sort of typifies sort of where the debate is right now and where the anger is coming from. It's not about necessarily issues or progressive or moderate. It's about, are we going to fight Trump or are we not, and are we going to stand up to this man or not? And I think that's where you're seeing a lot of the anger coming from.
Yeah.
And I think our leader is just in an incredibly difficult spot here. I think on the one hand, this is infuriating, and the fact that healthcare premiums are going to skyrocket and that we didn't hold the line is deeply depressing and is going to really, really hurt people. On the other hand, I'm sure that these senators were getting calls from SNAP recipients saying, my kids are going hungry. And to live with that, I think, is also just incredibly hard. And at the end of the day, Leader Schumer voted no. Can't control all his members who want to go out and make a deal, many of whom are retiring and many of whom don't sort of have to face their Democratic bases back at home. But Schumer's going to have to.
That's right. I saw one estimate, like 2 of them are retiring of the 8, and then most of the remainder don't go before voters until like 2028, 2030. So they've got plenty of time to sort of, fix it, come up with a cover story, or otherwise get away from this problem.
Right.
Well, in some ways, they're kicking the can just like a few months, right, to January 30th. So we may rerun some of this just a few weeks from now.
Oh, well, yeah, that's right. I mean, like the fundamental math hasn't changed, right? If your premiums are going to triple, then they're going to triple, right? Without the premium, without the subsidy, and so they're going to have to figure out what to do about the subsidy, either get it or don't, right?
That's right. And I think that's where the real leadership test for both Schumer and Jeffries is going to be is, okay, we held the line, we failed, the shutdown ended, what's next?
Yeah.
What's our approach next, and how do we?
Doesn't all of this though turn on? Schumer didn't do this, or Jeffries didn't do that, but this other Democrat would have done better. Who are those people? What are their names?
Well, throw that. Is AOC going to primary Schumer? I think I don't look. I think folks will start throwing out ideas of potential primary challengers to folks, but at the end of the day, first of all, those are uphill fights, and also internal fights that sort of take our focus off of the fight against Republicans and Donald Trump in Washington. And I think obviously that's where ultimately we have to put our focus and all our energy.
Yeah, I mean, they are literally coming up with the legal and logistical basis for sending troops into the streets of New York. Right. This would not seem to be the right time to say, hey, I'm going to raise some money and primary Hakeem Jeffries. That doesn't strike me as like the right priority at this moment.
I think that's right. And I mean, people are saying that right now, and I think it does take people's eye away from the prize and away from the existential moment we're in. And part of the challenge that Jeffries and Schumer are facing right now is we have a president in the United States who just has thrown every rule and norm out of the window and is willing to play politics with starving kids. Like, we are just in a new dynamic and a new territory, and keeping everyone laser focused on that, I think, is so important.
And somebody, by the way, who agrees with this is Mayor-elect Mamdani, if you believe some of the reports, pushing against the primary challenger, Hakeem Jeffries. I think that speaks to, his desire as he's coming in and starting a new administration to want to really focus on the work we have to do here and how we have to fight back and actually, get things done here.
Yeah, look, any mayor, frankly, even if it was a Republican mayor, the chance of having a House Speaker from within your jurisdiction is irresistible. Right. I mean, if you were the Speaker of the House, you can lose more money than most people ever get into their districts. And we'll see if that ever pans out. Thanks so much for coming by. Great talking with the both of you. That is going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks for watching and have a great evening. We'll see you next time inside City Hall.
That's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
You're done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
Your entertainment the way you want it. With Spectrum TV, all these streaming apps are included at no extra cost. So you can watch anything.
Lady, brother, be careful.
Movies.
I've got this condition where I don't feel pain.
You're a superhero.
No. Series.
There was another murder in the building.
Sports. Reality.
Here's to a summer you'll never forget.
News.
Here's a look at today's top story.
Exclusive originals.
We await your orders.
Even more of your favorites with live TV.
Welcome into First Take.
Stream across your devices and watch anywhere. At home or out and about. It's the entertainment experience you've been waiting for. Streaming apps included at no extra cost.
Just got that, pal. Get a good look.
With live TV and on demand. All together, all in one place for you to enjoy.
It's whatever kind of adventure we want it to be.
Get it all with Spectrum TV.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting. With stories that inspire and news that matters on your smart TV and connected devices. Streaming live 24/7, plus on-demand weather forecast to help you stay prepared. It's all there as you step outside with the Spectrum News mobile app.